what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to show a lot more clips, and it's going to be three-way. Two of us and you. So I want you to feel free at any time. When you have a question, raise your hand. And I suggest one of the things, ask Janusz why they did things, rather than how did you shoot that. That's just a suggestion. Was that a remarkable reel? Touchy? Does anybody sitting here know? I mean, cinematography. I came out of newspapers and started writing about cinematographers by accident. It was going to be 6 months. June was 46 years ago. Anybody here know what the word means? Invented by the Lumiere brothers in the 1890s. And it came from two Roman words. It means writing with light in motion. Everything having to do with making movies, almost everything except editing, was there before, going back to the Greek theater. There were writers, there were directors, there were actors, there were costume designers. The early cinematographers, and just 100 years ago, were literally inventing a new language, a new way of seeing things, and they did it in a collaborative process. Janusz, when and how did you decide you wanted to be a cinematographer of all the things you could be?
It all kind of happened by accident. I went to film school in Chicago, and not knowing much about various professions in the film business, I was thinking there's a producer with a cigar, there's a director, and there's a star. Well, I learned really quickly that there were other professions, and one of the professions that I was attracted to was the cinematography. And I think I like the aspect of cinematography because as an immigrant, I could learn a lot about the other aspects of being cinematographer, such as being a grip, being an electrician, being a camera assistant. And it's very practical knowledge because you can go outside the film school and you can immediately make some money by being a manual laborer on a commercial. So that was a very practical knowledge to acquire. But what I've discovered by shooting little student films, I've discovered the ability to, and the freedom to tell stories, the freedom to express myself through lighting, through camera movement, through composition. And I discovered the differences between what it means to have the camera in a low angle, what it means to have the camera in a higher angle, what it means to have the camera just a little bit higher above the eye line or lower above the eye line. I started learning about the power of images and power of non-verbal storytelling. And there's another element that was very important in this whole process. Very early, at the very first 101 filmmaking class, there was an instructor who, after viewing my little 100 feet of a black and white negative, he said, well, you're really good at this. You should keep on doing it. And there's a power of positive encouragement and having a mentor, which is, this is probably the first time as an adult, I was 23 years old, I was told that I was good at anything. And really, I just flew with that. And being in the film school, where everyone wants to be director, that created tremendous possibility for me to practice my art, to make mistakes, because nobody wanted to be cinematographer. So I ended up shooting about 30, 40 student films by the time I finished.
What was the school?
That was Columbia College
in Chicago.
So it's very interesting because based on my student demo reel, I was able to get a first professional job in Hollywood shooting an independent feature film. But I guess I love cinematography because of the freedom of artistic expression and being a foreigner, being a little bit intimidated by speaking. Of course, that's all eliminated. I can talk for hours. I found the nonverbal language to kind of suitable for me. And subsequently through the years, I've rediscovered the need to express myself through language, and I started directing a little bit here and there. But that's another part of conversation.
You went on to film school at American Film Institute, right?
Right. I went to Columbia College. I finished Columbia College in '87. I went there from '82 to '87, and then I went to the American Film Institute for 1 year. And pretty much after that, during that school, even during the school, I started working for Roger Corman. Not necessarily for him, just for his production company, which is called New Horizons, I think. New Horizons. And I started shooting little exploitation films. I wouldn't do soft porn. I would do naked woman running through the woods and being slashed. That kind of stuff, But I wouldn't. I mean, you gotta create a certain moral level for yourself. I would do little silly comedies with monsters, men dressed in rubber suits running around and screaming, you know. And then some stuff like crime, suspense thrillers I would do, which is a very, very interesting experience.
When Janusz was a student at AFI, great cinematographer was teaching him that year, John Alonzo. Right. And John was a great man. He actually called me up and he said, we've got a kid over here, you were a kid then, who you ought to start...
Goes by really fast, that kid, man.
You ought to pay attention to, because you're going to be writing about him a lot in the future. So he saw something in you.
Well, John was right. I was actually John's intern when I was in Columbia College. He was making a movie called Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks. And I was just doing, I knew a location guy, and one day I was standing outside the barricade looking at them making movies, and I would say, hey man, that John Alonzo, can I go meet him? And the guy says, oh, come on, jump over the fence. I jumped over the fence, I shook John's hand, and I said, look, I'm a film student, I'd like to be your intern. Come to work tomorrow. And that was wonderful.
Does anybody have any questions? Anything in the clips that you saw?
What I'm sure you've seen that reel once or twice. What goes through your mind when you're watching it? Just out of curiosity, do you think about events around the times of the shooting? Do you pick it apart and say, oh, I could have shot that better?
Well, with Indy 4, I can still smell the cave set, the little cave that the savages were running through. It was really stinky set. But really, what I'm looking at, I'm really looking at films that I'm so proud of, in a sense that, there are many cinematographers that go through life, professional life, and never get a chance to make a movie such as Munich or Amistad or Schindler's List, and I've been fortunate to do a few of those. So that's a tremendous sense of accomplishment and total conscious that still awareness that still I've got probably 25 years of professional life ahead of me if things go right.
One of your earliest big film was really Schindler's List. How did that happen?
I shot a little movie directed by Diane Keaton, television movie called Wildflower, and because of Diane, who is obviously well-recognized artist in Hollywood, people were seeing the movie, and Steven was one of the filmmakers that saw the picture, and he liked what I've done, and we've met, and he asked me to do a pilot for a television series that he was creating, a pilot called Class of 1861, which is a story of West Point cadets, West Point graduates of class 1861, which was, of course, that's the brink of the Civil War, and the story was about classmates that became soldiers on the field, and they were fighting against each other. And he really liked the work, and based on that, again, he asked me to do Schindler's List, and from there on.
How did you prepare the visual grammar? And I'm using that word, visual grammar, because that's what it is. It's like, I have to use grammar when I'm writing with words. How did the visual grammar for Schindler's List come about? Was it discussions? Did you look at films?
No, it's really easy to find the kind of idea for the movie that you're making. I mean, especially now with the amount of material, whether it's books and paintings or photography, you can just find something that really inspires you. And I found this book of photography from 1930s. There was a photographer named Roman Vishniak. He would travel across Eastern Europe and photograph Jewish settlements all over Eastern Europe. And I saw that book, and I was just totally inspired, and realized that he didn't have the modern technology, he didn't have the lights, he didn't have the equipment, but yet he created really meaningful and meaningful, because that's really important in cinematography. You just don't want to make a pretty images. Pretty images, that's advertising, but meaningful, that's, I think, the essence of cinematography. And he created these very meaningful images, and I realized if he could do it, I probably can do that with the Hollywood machine. And somehow it worked out, But being a cinematographer allows you to immerse yourself into this, immerse yourself in this research situation where you learn about the slavery, when you learn about the Holocaust, when you learn about Civil War, when you learn about what the future may look like. And that's also a very enticing profession because you learn about the world around you. It's a very interesting job.